Alright, so at AUT North Campus, this is the community garden area which has been set up, originally linked with one of the study programs at this campus, so linked with sport and exercise, potentially food and nutrition, but they've got a community garden set up here, so a few plants, a big massive green space, which is really cool, very different to city campus. So we've got some citrus, some herbs, some compost bins over here where they're, I suppose, disposing of some of the green waste. Nice little area, and all out in the open. Mixture of plants that are here. Most of these are herbs or food, and as I'm talking I can feel it start to spit, so lots of environmental factors at work obviously. There are some other more traditional human structures like this, so this might be a potential workspace for me if and when it does rain, and I'll be obviously working outside, but we'll need some other shelter just to help. Obviously if I've got my laptop, that is a no-no for getting wet. But yeah, lots of other I suppose plants and trees. Some of them are just flat on the ground, kind of lower, like here. Some of them are supported by other material structures, so this looks like grapes, and I've got wires going along helping hold them up. Also assuming that this netting here is used to protect the grapes from birds, other pests. And we do have these other structures, so slightly different from on the ground. They are built up, massive, quite sturdy planter boxes here. So numerous sets of them. So they're in rows of 3, each one getting higher than the last. Not sure if that was intentional or not, but I'm assuming so, because each of them is like that. But yeah, most of the greenery in here is edible, so this is, the idea is that anyone from the community, anyone local probably more so, can come and take, say this is silver beet, come and take some silver beet, put it to use in their own cooking, take some cabbage, etc. Take some kale, which is just here. There's also some mint, some spring onion. Some of them do have little labels on them. Like here we've got a sign for beetroot. No beetroot that I can visibly see, but that might have also been removed. Got some other plants. Looks like some beans potentially. Some things which have been cut, so that looks like it's been removed obviously by someone and then put to use. Some tomato plants. These are growing quite a way out of the planter box, which is awesome to see, but it does make me think about who looks after these and how often they are, I suppose, checked on. So you can see little tomatoes there. Potential idea is to set up my own textile structures in here, and because some of the plants and greenery which has been basically put in these planter boxes is the same. So again, like you've got the tomato plant here in one of the boxes, there's also tomato plants over here. Whether or not I can do an experiment, do a control group and then a test group, put some of my own textile structures which I've made from plant fibres, which will ideally be sourced from the North Campus site, and then test them out within these planter boxes or within one of the planter boxes. So it might be to deter birds from pecking at the tomatoes, taking photos documenting whether or not there are visible signs of birds who've eaten some of the greenery. So that's a more visual way to tell. Could also do that with some of the other plants too, if I wanted. Similar idea. There's numerous plants, plantings of the same species, so it'll be something to just figure out how best to approach. Again, I've got a tomato plant here. Jodie mentioned that it might also be good to note the location in terms of whether some of the planter boxes get more sun than others, getting the brunt of the wind, that kind of thing. So that will also be useful information, just to again make note of if and when I do need to reference it later, or it does become quite important in how the not using agrotextile as the term anymore, but using textile structures. The idea, at least the way that I want to frame the prototypes, the created things, the created products, is that it doesn't just have, it can be used for a specific intention. So it could be a bird netting. So the idea is you want to keep the birds away from the plant and help protect it in that manner. But just because it can be used to protect from birds doesn't mean that it doesn't have any other functional uses. It could also be a barrier for the wind or something else. So the idea is that there's lots of potential applications, and I don't want to limit, I suppose, the textile structures that I'm making to just one of those. So that's the idea with using the term textile structures instead of the term agrotextiles. Again, most of the textile structures that I'm making will be applied to, within horticulture and agriculture. So that's looking after plants, trees, looking after crops, potentially food, not so much animals, but the focus is very much on plants, at least for this site. Yeah, so also lots of other outdoor space, seating areas. This structure here is somewhat acting as a shelter, more of a shade protector than a rain protector. You can see the grates have holes in them, so they won't do much if it starts raining. But underneath we do have other garden space areas. Again, mixture of plants. I see some lavender, some rosemary, some borage, and I think some calendula, potentially. But yeah, lots of kind of bark pieces on the ground is kind of mulch. But there are two of these little areas underneath the physical man-made structure. This one here does have a lot more grassy kind of leaves and a lot more decaying leaves from the plant, which have now been used kind of as mulch, as a base for the ground, for the earth, for the dirt. And yeah, picked out a few natives. So across here there are lots of harakeke plants. Also interested in who looks after those, whether or not it's specifically people or tribes, iwi. So that won't be me because I'm Pākehā. But they also have a particular way of being maintained. So there are some plants which thrive with human interaction, like they need that to survive or to thrive. So harakeke is potentially one of those. From what Natalie said, she recommended reading a section in Braiding Sweetgrass that talks about this, so I have to find that later. But yeah, the way that harakeke is looked after, so you can see here that certain fronds have been cut. It's never the middle ones, the smallest ones, but it's the ones which are closer to the ground, which are the slightly older fronds. But yeah, numerous plants. Also a little sensory garden here. Probably not as relevant as a site or as a specific area within the site that I want to work in. But this area, this big, massive, open green space is more of my focus. So thinking that we'll have two potential zones of emphasis. One of them is going to be this community garden area, specifically probably the planter boxes. They already have quite a good structure set up in them, so utilising what is already there as an existing kind of ecology and habitat and growth. And then the other one is going to be the side along the walkway. So this walkway heads down to Akaranga bus station. So that's the commute. That's the route that I'm familiar with. The bus normally takes me to Akaranga, get off, and I walk along this and then head home to my flat. But yeah, there are lots of plantings and things along here. So figuring out whether this can also be a good hotspot for me working and applying my own textile structures to the ground, to the trees, the plants, supporting them in some form, and how they are supporting them will vary. It could be, again, like allowing moisture into the ground, or kind of maintaining a certain level of moisture to the ground. This is a little walkway. I actually don't know where it goes, but potentially down to another kind of big open grass down space. Lots of plantings over here. I did notice that reading through the website for the AUT Community Gardens for North Campus, there are a lot of student projects that have been produced on site, on campus. So the community gardens is one of them, and the food boxes. This AUT sign is also another one. So the idea is that I'll get closer, but there are little bits of wood in here which have drilled holes in them. The intention being they're providing a habitat for an insect species. I think it's bees. It could be another species. So it is a more sustainable approach. But that's the sign up close. But yeah, very different ground compared to the other area. From walking past this area when it has previously been raining, it does get insanely boggy. Whether or not that's impacted some of the trees and the growth, I'm not sure. But when Natalie, Jotty and I were over here, Natalie mentioned that some of the trees do look dead. So like this one here. I'm not sure what some of the species are. Again, that might be something to check with two of the staff who look after the grounds and maintain the campuses, all of the AUT campuses, so north, city and south. So you're checking what species are here, and then it might be that they aren't actually well suited for boggy playground. But yeah, if and when maybe they need more moisture, it might be we create a mulch mat and put that around the base of the plant, helping kind of keep that soil a consistent level of moisture, again helping it grow or improving the conditions for its growth.